Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm Aaron Hale, your host, and I really love this show you're about to hear. Justin Cramer is a former U.S. Marine Corps fire support man and JTAC evaluator, having served 5 deployments with 1st Anglo SFAAT 22215, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. In 2018, after 12 years of faithful service, Justin decided to change course, left the service and the Marines, go back to school, earn a degree, and become an entrepreneur. He started multiple businesses and a very successful podcast. My takeaways from this show are a few. 1, if you're not satisfied with the direction your career path is on, you're worthy of a fulfilling and satisfying and rewarding occupation. Don't be afraid to change course. But also, don't treat your business like a hobby. Take it seriously. And if you're going to go in, go all in. But you don't want to hear it from me. Before we get to the conversation, though, I want to ask you for a quick favor. It just takes one finger and one short moment. Whatever platform you're listening or watching this show on, if you would please hit the like button, subscribe, notify, give it a 5-star rating, type out a quick review. It'll show the algorithm that this is a show worthy of making a little bit more popular and pushing out to more subscribers. The more popular the show, the more fantastic guests like Justin that I can attract, and vice versa. So please, take a quick moment. Your small act will make a big impact. And with that, and without further ado, my conversation with Justin Cramer. Justin, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here, and I'm looking forward to digging into your story and sharing with the audience. So why don't we start with your former Marine?
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, my name's Justin. I'm a Marine. I'm from Lafayette, Indiana. I live in San Diego now. I stayed in the area after I got out of the Marine Corps. I was one of those guys that was a senior in high school when September 11th happened. And it was like, well, I had talked about joining the military. My dad was military. Both my grandfathers were military. It was kind of a thing in the family. Not formally, like some families, I guess, but it was kind of like I came to it on my own. No one pushed me to do it or anything like that. And it took me a little while to actually join. I actually didn't get to join until 2006. I got in trouble. I was a senior in high school. And I was one of those guys because of where my birth date lies. I turned 18 while I was in high school, and I got arrested for weed in Indiana right before I could go. So I got delayed and everything like that. So I ended up joining in 2006. And it was like we talked about before we started. My career is kind of defined by seeing an opportunity and taking it. You have to be successful in the military or really anywhere. You have to see something that's like, hey, this is a good opportunity for me. I'm good. I'm in a good spot to be the person. I'm qualified to do whatever it is. So I'm going to go do it no matter what anybody else says, and that kind of came to light first when I joined. So when I joined, I wanted to be infantry because of all the issues I had and everything. I ended up joining open contract, which was a horrible idea. And I became a mechanic, and I got an opportunity to work on a test vehicle, the EFSS, the Expeditionary Fire Support System. It's a 120 millimeter mortar. And I got sent to go work on that randomly. No one knew what it was. They just knew I was a new guy and they didn't really necessarily want me around. So they sent me to go work on this thing. And it was an awesome opportunity. I got to go to the field, shoot mortars, shoot machine guns. I'm a PFC that joined and I wanted to be infantry, and now I'm a mechanic. But this is like doing all the stuff that I really wanted to do. And when I came back from that test program, I went back to my old job as a mechanic, and I was just miserable again. And then one day I was driving around base, and I saw the test vehicles driving through base, and I was like, "Oh, dude, are they back?" I'm sitting here thinking like, "Oh, are these vehicles back?" And I went back to work, and I asked my platoon sergeant, and I was like, "Hey, are these vehicles back? And are they going to be testing them again?" And they're like, "Yeah, but we think someone else is already on it." And I was really successful the first time I did it. I got high praise from like all the officers and the enlisted dudes that I worked with. It was a small team of mechanics and stuff like that. So I knew if the same people were working there, the chances of me getting back on it were pretty good. So one day during lunch, I just drove around the base until I found out where the vehicles were, and got out of my car, was walking up, and the program manager, who was a major, came out and was like, "Cramer." And I was like, "Hey, sir," because I'm a Lance Corporal, an E3. And he's like, "Hey, you want to come work on these again?" I'm like, yeah, I definitely do, because I'm miserable, because being a mechanic is not fun. I was that maintenance battalion, which is basically working on, you're turning wrenches from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. And it's not what I wanted to do. There was guys there that loved it and, enjoy it and stuff, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So this was an opportunity to go do something else. And, I saw that opportunity. I saw the vehicles were driving around, and I knew that if I reached out and did something on my own, then I could make it happen. I got a by name request orders to come back, got to go to Alaska, I got to go do all these like cool stuff and everything like that. So yeah, that's just kind of a peek behind the curtain of the first time something like that happened.
So that touch back, you're in San Diego now. You grew up there, both.
I'm here now. I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, which is just north of here. And when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2018, I decided to stay in the area. My son is here and everything. So stayed in the area and rolled right into college to use my GI Bill. Started out of the community college because I had taken some college credits while I was still in the Marines. And to transfer to any of the schools, you have to have a minimum amount of transfer credits. So I went to the community college, got enough transfer credits, and then went to SDSU. And got a major in the School of Journalism and Media Studies with a focus on advertising. And yeah, during that time, I started my own podcast, the Former Action Guys podcast, and I started some websites and just kind of made projects work. Tried to build something, while I was in school. I had that opportunity. The GI Bill's paying some of the, GI Bill's paying for school, part of my housing and stuff like that. So I have a little bit of flexibility where I can start something off that's not going to be making a lot of income at first, but maybe by the time I get them to school, it can become a full-time gig. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
So you took the initiative to get out of the mechanics billet and go hunt down this new vehicle, this new platform, and you got the job, right?
Yeah. As a mechanic, but it was all the guys that were on this program, because it was a test program, were getting out of the military. So they're all the guys that are on their last like 6 months and stuff like that. And so when we would go to the field, I'm there as a mechanic to make sure anything that messes up gets fixed quickly, because we're running a test program. But when they're like shooting machine guns and everything, these are all machine gunners that have shot millions of rounds. They just gotten back from Iraq, from a crazy deployment in Iraq. So these guys have had plenty of trigger time. And they're like, "Oh, you've never even shot a machine gun before? Get up here." Well, other than like MCT and stuff like that, combat training and after boot camp.
Did that kind of aid in your decision to get out? You said 12 years. That's kind of one of those. It's getting to the point where it's a tough decision whether to do the whole 20 or longer, or cut bait and find a new path.
Yeah, it was when I told people I was getting out, they're like, "No way." I mean, I had a couple, like, there was like mixed reactions. There was a group of people that were like, "No way. Staff sergeants don't get out at 12 years. You're 8 years from retirement." There were guys that were like, "I respect what you're doing, and I could never do it myself." They're like, "I don't have the balls to do it because I need to, like, I'm a career man now. I'm looking at that retirement." And then there were guys that were like, "Fuck yeah, like, do it." And I'm sorry if you don't use foul language on the podcast, but but they're like, yeah, do it, man. You got to do what's best for you and stuff. Because what happened was, so after I did 3 years as a mechanic, I did deployment to Iraq as a mechanic. While I was in Iraq, my reenlistment came up, and I had an opportunity in the Marine Corps. After you do your first contract, or when you come out to the end of your contract and you come up for your reenlistment, then you can put in a request to change jobs. And there's certain jobs that you have to do an enlistment, like EOD, like your job, you have to do an enlistment, and then you can request to go into that field. You can't just go into it. So there's jobs like that. And then you can also just like request to go into the infantry or go into, I remember when I was a motor team mechanic, we had a sergeant that was a lat mover from the infantry to become a mechanic. And I was like, who's this guy? This is crazy. So when I was in Iraq in 2009, the opportunity came up to switch jobs, and again, you got to see the opportunity and kind of jump on it, seize it. And I was kind of stuck. It was a real defining point for me because I had a family, I had a wife and son, and, I'm 20 something years old, and you go, do I want to make this a career, or do I want to do another 4 years? Cause your first 4 years is kind of rough because you're the junior guy, half of it's training and stuff like that. And then another, you probably get a year of good, like being, I don't know, it's tough, for a junior guy because you're constantly the junior guy. So when you get to the end of that first enlistment, I understand why people have a bad taste in their mouth, some people and stuff like that. But I knew I could do more once I got promoted to, at this point I was a corporal. When I got promoted to sergeant, and then staff sergeant would be down the road, there'd be more opportunities to be a good leader and show good leadership and stuff like that. So I switched jobs, became an 0861, which is a fire support man or forward observer. And then when I got back from Iraq, I got sent to 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines. That's in Camp Lejeune, and waited for school, went to school, and then got selected to go with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines to Marja in Afghanistan in 2011 as the fire support chief. Basically, I'm approving fires. I'm doing. I was kind of bummed because I was like, man, because normally a lat mover sergeant, they're like, they don't have a lot of experience. We're not going to send them as a chief. We're going to send them as a scout, and they're going to go out on patrols and do that whole part. But they needed chiefs. I was a little bit, because I joined and I was a little bit older, and I had a really good mentor. I picked up on it real quick, so they sent me as a chief, and I ended up getting to do all the calls for fire. Because most of it was ran out of the command center anyway. So, but yeah, it was an exciting deployment. It was what I wanted. It was halfway to what I wanted, cause I was still in a command center, but I was at least felt like I was doing something that was actually impacting the war, because as a mechanic, they're vital. You need mechanics. Someone's got to fix the trucks. Someone's got to keep them going. Without those armored vehicles aren't going down the road. The armor's not getting put on vehicles in some cases. But it's hard to feel like you're doing something when you're sitting inside the base and stuff like that.
I know exactly how you feel. I started off as a Navy cook, and I'm one of those guys that starts off, that statement where every job is important in the military, except I just like you felt sedentary and just want another cog in the machine until I switched it over to EOD, and so I know exactly what you've been talking about.
Yeah, I didn't join to not, like, some of us joined because we wanted the excitement, we wanted the adventure, we wanted that, whatever it is that draws young men, I guess, to the Marine Corps or military in general. And I can imagine as a Navy cook, that was not fulfilling that it was not scratching that itch, if you will. That was, and my decision to get out, when it comes around to it. So I did a couple more deployments. I did another one to Afghanistan as a JTAC, as a Afghan Army advisor in Sangin in 2013. And then when I came back from that, I got sent to 1st Anglico, which is Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. It's in Camp Pendleton. And their specialty is attaching to non-Marine units to provide Marine fire support, close air support, stuff like that. So a big mission of Anglico was to go to, like, Afghanistan and be the fire support element for the on the Georgian liaison teams. There's a Georgian army that was operating there. So they would attach to those guys and go on patrols and be the forward observers and JTACs. In Iraq, guys were working with, even in Afghanistan, guys were working with SEAL teams and special operations teams and stuff that needed like a JTAC or fire support specialist and stuff like that. That was not my experience, though. I got there and we went on ship. And as you can attest, the ship life is not fun for the E6 and below crowd. And after doing 3 combat deployments and then being put on ship, I was actually looking forward to it. I was like, maybe it'll be a booze cruise, we'll hit some cool ports and stuff like that. And which we did, I got to go to Hong Kong and Singapore and, all these places. But at the same time, you get treated like crap on ship. And I just did not like it. It put a bad taste in my mouth, to the point we did a crossing the line ceremony, and I was like, I'm refusing. Like, I'm not doing this. And prior to that deployment, I would have been all about it. I would have been the guy like, fuck yeah, because I'm all about the traditions and the that kind of esprit de corps kind of stuff in the military. But the way that the way we worked with our Navy counterparts and stuff like that was just not positive. There were good Navy people I worked with on ship, but there were a lot of not good Navy people. And I don't know what your experience was, but it was just not a good one. And then my second deployment, I was working up with my team, my Anglico team, to do a deployment, and I got pulled because a seat went unfilled for a MU fires chief, which is the fires chief position on ship. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm a JTAC. I'm a JTAC evaluator. There's only like 3 or 4 of us on the West Coast, and we're the guys that sign off on everybody's designation codes and stuff like that to confirm that they can drop live ordnance without supervision. And it's kind of a, high demand job. And you're wanting to send me into this position where that's not even a JTAC position at all. And I'm not going to be able to, like, you're taking away a training aid for every unit on the West Coast for this whole deployment or whatever. And anyway, I was just trying to justify why they should not send me. And I told them, I was like, if you send me to this, I'm getting out. I was like, because at the same time, I was trying to screen for MARSOC to go over to MARSOC Fires to be a JTAC there. Cause that was kind of like my career progression. I became a forward observer, and then I became a JTAC, and then I became a JTAC evaluator. And I talked to my buddies at MARSOC, and they're like, when I was at 10th Marines, I was like, should I come straight to MARSOC or take these orders to Anglico? And my buddy was like, dude, Anglico is great. Go there first, get a lot more experience, and then come over here and you'll be even better. So I was trying to follow that path. And then the big green weenie came in, and tried to stop it. And I told him, I was like, this is a waste of time. The deployment is going to be me sitting in the LFOC, which is the operations center on the ship, answering the phone. I'll stand watch, because the fires chief on ship doesn't have, when you're floating around until there's like an exercise or something happens, you don't have a job. You're just, so I literally for that entire deployment stood watch like once a week for 10 to 12 hours and answered the phone. And outside of that, I didn't do anything because my operations officer didn't like enlisted dudes and didn't want me in fires planning meetings, which was crazy. Like it was just a really, really not good situation.
Plenty of time to eat, watch movies, and work out, man.
Whoa, yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to, that's the thing too, is like, I remember having to get into arguments with the sailors about allowing the Marines to finish chow. I remember we had guys in chow, in line for chow. The whistle hadn't even gone off yet, or the bell or whatever. And they come out and they're like, hey, chow's closed. You guys aren't eating. And it's like, what are you talking about? And I was a staff sergeant, and I would always wait in line, even though you didn't have to as a staff sergeant on ship. If you're a staff sergeant or a first class, an E6, you can cut to the front of the chow line. But I always thought that was fucked up. So unless I was on watch, I waited in line with everybody else. And I was in line when they did that. And I'm like, no fucking way, dude. You're telling 25 Marines that they can't eat? Like, that's so fucked up.
So this billet that they were trying to assign you to, you felt like it was more of a lateral or even a backwards?
Yeah, 100%. Because in my coming up in the fires community, guys that went to go be MU fires chief, we normally sent guys that were coming off recruiting duty or there was a reason why we sent him over there. It's not a bad job, it's just not one of the most active jobs.
They just had a lot of downtime. They just needed to fill a billet.
They needed to fill a billet. And I told him, I'm like, dude, well, not only were my qualifications kind of, like I said, they needed guys like me on the West Coast because there was only a handful of us. I would get calls from other units to come out and evaluate their JTACs and do stuff like that. The other part of it was that I had just done, from 2009, I went to Iraq, and then this deployment was leaving in 2017, and that was my 5th deployment. So in that, or 2016, 2016 is when it left. So in that 7-year time frame, I had started at least 5 deployments. And I was just like, I would be starting my 5th deployment in that 7-year time frame. And I was like, look, dude, this job isn't fit for me. And it's kind of fucked up that you keep, that you're going to send me on this. And they were like, sorry, man, it is what it is. And I was like, all right, then I'm getting out. And I told them, like I said, I told them beforehand, they sent me, and it's the big machine. They don't care about one little cog in the wheel. I'm just a cog, So they sent me, and I immediately started crushing college courses because I was like, I'm getting out. I'm on ship. I got nothing to do. So I knocked out 30 credits before I even, in a 2-year time frame. And when I got out, I remember emailing like a going away invite to a bunch of people, to a big list of friends and stuff. And one of my buddies I hadn't seen in a while emailed me back, and he's like, dude, I can't believe you're actually doing it. He's like, I thought you were just bullshitting. And that same guy I actually just talked to the other day, and he goes, your story comes up in Manning meetings sometimes still. He's like, because of how fucked up it was. And it wasn't just me. There were other guys within the 0861 community that were just kind of burned out. It's a high demand job. Everybody needs a JTAC. All Sergeant 0861s get screened to become a JTAC if you become one, which is what most guys' goal is. You want to become a JTAC. But with that comes the responsibility of a lot of deployments, a lot of field time. And then when you're done, you do it for a few years. The Marine Corps only wants you to do it for a few years. Then they shit you back out to go be a recruiter or go back to just be a fires chief somewhere. And it feels like you're being used. And I was like, dude, like, I don't need this. I'm going to sit on ship for 7 months and do nothing. I know that because I just got done doing it. This was the same unit. It was the 11th MU 2 times in a row. I can't justify leaving my kid again for 7 more months to go sit here and answer a phone once a week. And
so you got, oh, sorry.
No, that was it. And that was it. I got out.
You came to that point where you were fed up. And I totally understand. My first duty station was the cook in the Navy. They didn't even tell you that it's like hotel restaurant management. So in the Navy, the hotels are the barracks. My first duty station, I wasn't even cooking. I was the night guy at the front desk of the BEQ.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I didn't mind, serving, paying my dues. But then my next duty station was 3-star Admiral flag mess on the flagship in Gaeta, Italy. And then my third duty station was back in the barracks, night watch again. You can't do that. You can't. That's not right. So that was part of my decision point. Was I felt like I was getting pushed backwards as well. But so you come to the decision point. You're going to get out.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had a plan, or did you? What was coming next? How did you do that?
Well, so just so people understand also that I'm not just some disgruntled dude that didn't get what he wanted, so he got out, which should be completely fair also. I go, you know what? They're making me go here. I'm going to make the best of this crappy situation. And they have a seat to WTI, which is the Weapons and Tactics Instructor School. So I was a JTAC evaluator. The next step up is a WTI. And if I could get WTI, then I could be a JTAC for the rest of my career. They had an open seat for that school that they were allowed to send someone to. And the first day that I got there, I met the air officer and I go, hey, sir, do you guys have a seat for WTI? And he's like, yeah, I do. Yeah. He's like, oh, he goes, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you do. I know you do because I was tracking it over at Anglico when I was still over there. And he's like, why, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, that's like, and I, laid out my case. I'm an evaluator, been doing it for a little bit. That's the next step in my career. And he was like, no, that's an officer school. And I'm like, I was kind of taken aback, and I was like, no, it wasn't. No, it's not. I know it's not, because we've sent guys. And instead of sending me, they didn't send anyone. And when he said that to me, when he goes, that's an officer school, you can't go. After everything I had done, it was like no one cares about any of the stuff I've done. And I'm not trying to like use my accolades, like, oh, I'm so amazing. But the machine,
so adding insult to injury.
Yeah, I was like, I was trying to be the good Marine and go, you know what? This is a crappy situation. I don't want to be here. But if I can make the best of this situation, go to this course, and then I could just be a JTAC for the rest of my career, because they don't really mess with WTIs. And when he said that, when he goes, this is an officer's course, I was like, that's it, man. I'm tired of being looked down on because I'm a staff sergeant or I'm an enlisted guy. Not necessarily being looked down on, but there's some officers that won't even listen to you because you're an enlisted guy. And it's like, there's no reason behind it other than you're an enlisted guy. And it's super weird. And my last deployment, my operations officer was like that. He didn't want my opinion on anything. My captains that I worked with from Anglicove that were on that deployment also were like, hey, sir, you're asking our opinion. You need to ask Justin Cramer. Like, he's the subject matter expert. And he just kind of, and that kind of attitude made me decide to get out. And when I was getting out, people asked me, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to go to school. And I don't know, I was like, you know what? I know a lot of morons, to put it plainly. I actually said that. I was like, I know a lot of morons back home that are somehow succeeding. So if whatever I'm doing doesn't work, I can always just go back home to Indiana and get a job at a factory and do whatever. Like, there's still opportunities there. I'm not afraid of not being able to get a job or do something. But I do want to give it a shot. I saw this transition period as an opportunity to, like I said, I can use my GI Bill. So for those that don't know, when you go to school, you can use your GI Bill. 100% of your tuition is paid. And on top of that, you get paid whatever the married sergeant BAH is for that zip code that the college is in. And I'm in San Diego. And so you get that money on top of it. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to start a website. I remember a couple days after I got out, I was on a Facebook group, the Anglico Facebook group. And Anglico is a really small unit. There's like 180 people in it at any one time, at each Anglico, and there's 6 of them. And not many people know about it. None of the like military websites sell t-shirts or Anglico stuff. And the way guys would get shirts and stuff is they would go on the Anglico Facebook page and be like, hey, is anybody at the company? Can someone get a shirt for me? Can someone send me a challenge coin or whatever? And I remember seeing that, and I'm like, why are we still doing this? I saw that opportunity. Like, why is no one making this? Not necessarily like, oh, I need to make money off of it. That opportunity is there, obviously. But the old Vietnam guys that want to sport an Anglico shirt should be able to get one. You know what I'm saying? They shouldn't have to order it from some company that's making them in China and, some garbage Amazon t-shirt, like whatever. So I've never done it. I'm not a computer guy. I watched a video on YouTube of how to make a website, and I made a t-shirt website and started selling Anglico shirts. And that kind of spread. Word got around. Hey, I do unit t-shirts. And I remember being in and trying to get like, hey, we want to do a new unit t-shirt. And then you're like, all right. And you got to get everybody's sizes and colors. And, there's like a roster. And then, okay, now we got to collect money. And I was like, dude, this is stupid. I'll just put your shirt up on the website for a discounted price, for a bulk order price, and then let you guys all just order it individually. And then once you're done, then I'll just put it back to its regular price. That way one person doesn't have to collect the money, because that's the worst part. And I've done it. I ordered shotguns and pistols as deployment gifts for 2 of my deployments, and did rosters and money there. And just, it's always a pain in the butt. And I was like, what's one way we can stop that? Let everybody just order their own stuff. So I do that now. I sell a lot of unit t-shirts. Units contact me. I throw my logo on there. They tell their guys, they just jump on, buy what they want individually. They don't have to worry about it. They can buy in groups if they want to save on a little bit on shipping, but most people buy it individually. And I started that while I was in school, and I built on it. And then I started the podcast also. I was like, man, I was a JTAC. I didn't have the most whatever like awesome JTAC career. Like I got to do a deployment as a JTAC and stuff like that. But I knew guys that did like crazy stuff that were JTACs during a time where they would be deployed, and before they even got home, they would get an email like, your next deployment is this date. And they would come home, do their post-deployment leave, take a month off, and then go into a workup for their next deployment and go right back out. And these guys were just doing crazy stuff. And I'm like, I know too many guys that have done crazy stuff that will never be written in a history book, never be talked about. And the first summer I had off college, I did a road trip across the US, and I stopped at a few of my buddies' houses and I recorded the first like 5 or 6 episodes of the podcast. You know, I couch surfed, saw the country. I took 2 weeks, just kind of drove and saw the things I wanted to go see and the stuff I'd read about, and linked up with my buddies, you know, and did these interviews, and it just kind of grew from there. It's been almost 4 years in August.
So let me ask you first about the T-shirt company. How did you start this up? What's the back office type of thing? Are you making the T-shirts, or are you ordering them from somebody else and just providing the internet service? How does that work?
So I do. I don't print them myself. I don't have the time. I want to bring it in house, and I actually was going to put out, you know, if anyone's listening, if there's any veteran printers out there that want to print T-shirts, I've been looking for a sole provider for the shirts because I want to put it all under one roof. Because I have shirts, flags, coffee tumblers, mugs. Not every one person can do every one thing. So I have different vendors and stuff like that.
Okay.
That do all the different options. Over time, I found out what works, what doesn't, you know, what vendors are good, what aren't, what brands are good, what aren't. You know, and that took a little bit of time, and I can't say enough about the guys that supported me through probably some garbage shirts coming out initially. Not initially, but occasionally, because I didn't understand the process yet because I was new to it. But guys still kept coming, and that was like, I mean, that means more than anything, right? And so I was able to work all that out, and yeah, I just I don't know, I just do so when I was in high school, I was in graphic design. And I did graphic design for 3 years in high school, and almost went to school for it. Ended up joining the Marines, like I said. And right before I got out, like a year or two before I got out, I got back into photography. I had an Evo. I was really into California, Southern California. The car scene here is amazing. So I had this sports car, and I would go to all these car meets a couple times a week. You know, I was driving all over the place. So I got a camera and I started shooting photos again. And started using Photoshop again, which I hadn't used in over a decade. But the good thing about Photoshop is that if you've used it and you learned it, then you know the basics, and the basics still apply. And I relearned how to use Photoshop, and I started offering graphic design services. So guys would send me like a jacked up logo or a picture of a logo on a T-shirt and be like, hey, can you remake this? And so I started doing that as well. And yeah, and then now on top of that stuff, I'm also a digital marketing guy because, you know, I was in advertising in school. So now I work on SEO, search engine optimization, Google search, you know, helping people out with that, doing website audits. And I'm just kind of like one of those people that does a million things. I have too much going on, really.
Well, it sounds like one thing kind of adds on to the next and feeds into the other.
Oh, 100%.
So, I'm curious about if somebody else wanted to get into e-commerce or selling T-shirts or any of the other kind of things that you mentioned there, including starting a podcast. How difficult was it? What were the lessons you learned along the way? What were there mistakes that you made that you would want to share?
There's always mistakes. There's always mistakes. If you listen to the first episodes of the podcast, I remember I went back, it was at like episode 100 or something. I'm like, I'm going to go back and listen to the first episode. And the intro just sounded horrible because I tried to edit the audio and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make this sound awesome. And I went back and listened to it. You know, over time, as you learn a skill, any kind of editing, Photoshop, audio editing on Premiere or on Audition or something like that, you just get better and better. And you look back at your old work and you're like, oh, I can't believe I ever thought that was good. And I remember listening to that first episode and the audio sounded like garbly and stuff, the intro. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe people actually listen to this. Like, it was so bad. I actually cut the intro off of it and re-uploaded it with a new intro. Cause I was like, man, if someone starts from the beginning and this is the first thing they hear, then that's not good, you know? So actually the first episode has a redone intro. So getting into e-commerce, I saw something on Reddit the other day. I get on I have a Shopify store. I get on the Shopify Reddit and I try to answer questions every once in a while because I know people have questions and stuff. And someone said on there, is drop shipping dead or is drop shipping oversaturated or something like that, which is what most people do with e-commerce is drop ship stuff. And I said, no, drop shipping junk is oversaturated. Like too many people have ordered some random thing off Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And it took like 2 months to get there. And then when it showed up, it broke, or it wasn't like the joke, buying something from wish.com exists for a reason. You're getting a lot of people are trying to sell that kind of stuff. And that's like my big thing for my advice for people is to whatever it is you're selling, be it something you're drop shipping or something you're creating on your own. Like not everything I have on my website is drop shipped. A lot of the stuff I stock, stickers I stock, shorts I stock, there's different things that I stock. So it's a mix of stuff. But whatever it is that you're wanting to sell, it's like you have to ask yourself, like, would I wear this? Would I use this item? And be honest about it. Like, is this a piece of crap? If someone tried to sell me this, would I look at them and go, that's a piece of crap, I don't want it? You know what I'm saying? You have to find the use of what it is that you're trying to sell. Because if you're trying to sell junk and then you get junk results, that's your fault, right?
Well, you gotta develop the brand. People have to know, like, and trust you. And then the product follows. And you better have a quality product to follow a quality brand. And then drop shipping is just a method, right?
Yeah,
it's just a way of delivering your product from supplier to customer. So it's not as though you need the methodology is oversaturated. It's just what are you selling and how do you get it to your customer?
Yeah. I mean, look at like fidget spinners, right? I remember the first time I saw a fidget spinner was on Ship and someone was using one. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, oh, it's a fidget spinner. It's something to spin while you're bored or something. I'm like, what? And then they blew up and then people started drop shipping them and they all come from China and stuff like that. And then you don't find anybody selling them anymore. If you do, they're super cheap because it became oversaturated. And that's what I kind of mean by like these weird one-off products. They might be good for like a quick buck or two, but it's not a business. It's not a sustainable business. The business that you're creating is quickly selling like store or items in like pop-up stores or something like that. So what it all comes back to, myself, I'm always trying I'm on my computer every day. I'm looking at my website, doing speed checks, making sure descriptions are correct, you have to go, is this a business or is it not? You know what I'm saying? Like it can be a hobby. And if it's a hobby and you're just trying something out and you just want to maybe make a couple bucks while you try something out, then that's cool. But if it's a business, you got to treat it like a business. People think when you work from home, you're just sitting around watching TV all day and stuff. And it's like, no, man, I have to dedicate time of the day to work. If I have the TV on and stuff like that, I'm not going to get stuff done. Like there has to be dedicated time. And you end up working like I do, where I sit on my computer at night and make little website improvements. I go through and look at the code and go, oh, this needs to be changed, to optimize, maybe to load it 0.5 milliseconds faster. I need to update this. So I'm going to do that because all those little changes make the product better and make it easier for your customer to enjoy your product. If I go to a website that's all weird looking and it has like weird pop-ups or it's not formatted correctly, the first thing I think is this is a scam. And it might not be, but that's the image you're putting off. So you have to kind of be cognizant of that and go take a step back and look at it from a third party perspective and go, is this good or not? And then with the podcast, I started it out. Like I said, I had all these stories and I wanted to share, and you have to set goals for yourself. And when I remember when I first started it, podcasting is a weird thing because there's a lot of different things are called podcasts. Long form interviews are called podcasts. Investigative series are called podcasts. Podcasting is like saying TV now. There's a lot of different things on TV. Just like there's a lot of different podcasts. I wanted to do these long form interviews and stuff like that. And I wanted it to become a thing. Like when I started it, and I took a long time, I had the idea for many months, if not over a year. I sat on the name Former Action Guys Podcast for a long time, for over a month, maybe 2 months, because I wasn't sure, because it says, FAG podcast. If you break it down, it's the acronym is FAG. And I'm like, is that going to mess me up for marketing and stuff like that? And I was like, you know what? It's a good name, Former Action Guys Podcast. I just won't ever use the acronym. Other people will come to it, obviously, but whatever. I don't care. And if anything, it'll be funny, something that's funny that creates comments, that'll drive engagement kind of deal. And I, for a long time, for at least 2 months, I sat on the name, didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want to give it away. And I bought the domain and stuff like that. And so I settled on it, and I was like, all right, this is going to be for real. And I remember I was like, I'm not starting off on my phone recording. And again, I saw this as a business. So I was like, I'm going to go buy microphones. I'm going to start off right and get microphones. I'm going to do that and, get the editing software I need. If you're not trying to make it a business, if you're just trying to have some fun with yourself, maybe it's an online blog, diary, whatever you want to call it, or you're just having fun with friends, you can do it for free. You can record episodes on your phone. It's not a big deal, and it's completely free. And there's no need to do all the stuff I'm talking about. But I was like, this is going to be something, and I'm going to make it something. And so I bought all the microphones, bought the equipment, and when I released my first episode, I released it as episode 001. And I knew when I did that, that was like a challenge to myself to make it to at least 100. I'm saying I'm going to go to at least 100. That's why this is episode 001. Mm-hmm. And every episode was 001, 002. And I know there were people that were watching me through social media from afar that were like, what? That's bold. 001, that's bold, and a lot of people are going to start a show and not want to keep doing it. And I just kept doing it. I've taken like a month off here and there, but it's been mostly, I'm at I think episode 187. And I started in August of 2019. It's been almost 4 years, or it's like 3.5 years now. So, or almost 4 years. And I set goals. I go, hey, by episode 40, I want to be on video. I want video. How do I do that? And I just did research. People need to understand, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you is that everything is available online. You're not the first person to ever do a podcast. You're not the first person to ever set up a camera. You're not the first person to ever set up lighting. How do you do it? Because if you listen to a podcast and the audio is messed up, do you continue to listen, or do you go, I'm not going to listen to this, I'm going to turn it off? Why would you then go and have a podcast where your audio is messed up? Why would you allow yourself, because you don't like that. Why would you do that? Because no one else is going to like that. So you have to see those things. So like when I set a goal for myself, by episode 40, I want to be on camera. I researched. I was like, I go, what camera is Joe Rogan using? He's obviously doing this right. Like what's his setup? And so I got a camcorder. Instead of like a webcam, I use a camcorder that plugs into an encoder, and it's in 4K, the camcorder's 4K and stuff like that. And then I got lights to make it, everything look right. And my whole thing was, I want the audience to see that I'm trying. The audience will appreciate that I'm putting in some effort here to like make it a little bit better. If I'm going to upgrade, I'm not going to go cheap or as cheap as possible, because I'm seeing this as a business. So I'm going to do an upgrade as good as possible. So I got a 4K camera, like it's just, that's just kind of how I look at it. And that's kind of how I've been doing it. Yeah.
But you didn't get your 4K camera on episode 1.
No.
001. You
I
got
think my goal was episode 40, and I think my first actual video episode is episode 35. So I beat my goal. I think it is. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I did beat my goal of being on episode 40. But
and I'm sure you're not recommending that anybody who wants to start a podcast go out buy the best equipment possible and then get started, right? Take action.
So you have options, right? You have options to build. So if let's say you're starting a podcast, like I said, if you're doing it for fun and you just want to record some stuff, you can record it on your phone. I can hold my phone up and just talk into it. I could talk into the speaker or the mic on my computer and record something like that. If you want to make it a business or you want to do something, you want it to be more than just like a hobby, spend a little bit of money. Don't go out and buy SM7B microphones. These are expensive. The whole setup is expensive. You're going to spend $1,500 for a couple microphones. And then if you figure out 2 months down the line that you don't like doing this, that's a lot of money you just dropped. So you can get good sound quality and you can listen to all the way up to like episode 150 or 160. I used Yeti Blue microphones and I paid $115 each for those for I bought each $115. So I spent a little bit up front, that's a little bit more than a normal microphone, but it's nowhere near like a studio quality microphone like this was. And then eventually I updated, once those got kind of beat up, I drove cross country with them. They've been used 150 times, 150 episodes. It was like, all right, I'm going to upgrade, or I need to replace these, but I'm not going to replace them with the same thing. I'm going to replace them with new mics. And I even, told my Patreon subscribers, like, you guys are paying for this. This is the gratitude, you guys throwing in, chipping in is allowing me to upgrade these microphones and stuff, which will make the audio better, which will make the show better, So yeah, that's just my kind of mantra. If you have to make a replacement, upgrade it. Same thing with my car. If my air filter, like if I have a car and it's got a stock air filter in it, my air filter is dirty, I'm going to upgrade it to a better air filter, higher performing, if I can, obviously within your financial means. Don't be spending money.
Let it grow up with you and your podcast, right? So get started, start taking action, and then start adding the equipment as you start getting more comfortable with the platforms.
For sure. And your audience will appreciate that. And I know there's people that have been listening to my podcast from day one, and I'm sure it's awesome. What they've told me, actually, they think it's awesome. Guys have messaged me and been like, dude, it's really been awesome to watch you grow and see what you've built. Guys that I was in the Marines with and stuff, guys that were like, shit, Cramer's getting out, I wanted to kind of be to show guys that are getting out that you don't have to do the normal. There is no normal when you get out. You can do whatever you want. You have this weird opportunity, especially if you're still young. If you stayed in for 30 years and you're a little older, obviously that changes a bit. But if you're younger and you have a GI Bill and you have all these benefits that are available to you, you have a unique opportunity to try something that you've never, or that you've always wanted to do, but you've maybe never had the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Like
the military, of course, everything is dictated to you for the most part. How, you've got manuals, training manuals, field manuals, regulations. You know exactly what you're going to wear every single day, where you're supposed to be and when. And then when you transition out, all those decisions are yours. All that freedom is yours. And it could be overwhelming.
100%.
So, creating that plan and trying to figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it, that can actually be pretty frightening.
It is, and it will be, no matter what you do. And your plan's going to change. When I got out, I initially applied to USC. No way I should have applied to USC. I hadn't taken it. I was an enlisted guy. I hadn't taken my SATs or anything like that. My high school, my test scores were really good. All my state test scores were all above average, but my actual school GPA and stuff wasn't great because I just didn't like being in school. I was bored by school. So I applied to USC because I was going to try to get into their film program because I was like, hey man, so I was getting into photography again, and I was like, somebody's got to be the person to make documentaries. Why not me? That's my kind of attitude. Why not me? Why can't I be the guy that goes and make documentaries, travels the world, goes sits in a jungle to shoot video of a frog, sitting on a leaf or whatever. And I was like, that would be super cool. So I applied to USC for that. Got denied because I had no idea. I didn't ask for any help. I should have, I didn't. So whatever. And then on my way out, I was like, okay, well, that didn't work. USC didn't work, but SDSU is here. I'll just go to school here. And I was like, I don't know. I had to pick a major because I had come to enough credits where you can't be undeclared anymore. So I picked a business administration. I was like, well, I'll just go into business administration because I'm doing this podcast. I got this website started. This will kind of help me learn more about how to run my business. And I did a semester of that, and I was like, this sucks. Like, all roads here lead to a cubicle or something. Like, this is, as fun as business analytics was, I don't want to keep doing that, that kind of classwork. And I saw that SDSU had that journalism program, and I was like, well, because it's the School of Journalism and Media Studies school. But they have underneath that umbrella is different focuses. There's straight journalism, there's PR, there's advertising, and then there's something else. I don't remember what the other one is. And with that, you take journalism classes, but then you take a bunch of classes that focus on whatever your focus is. And I was like, well, that's cool because the diploma says a bachelor in journalism and advertising. So if I want to go try to get a journalism job, I'll just say I got a degree in journalism. And if I want to go get an advertising job, I'll just say I got a degree in advertising. And I was like, that's gonna give me some options. That's how I looked at it. And so yeah, I took the course, or got the degree, finished. I worked at an ad agency for a little bit, and
Well, it sounds like you got well, you didn't have a full picture. You had a general direction. You had, you knew you wanted to start a business, fend for yourself. You got an education, and you're building on something, and continue to build brick by brick these businesses, podcast, your education. What's next? What's the next brick?
Right now, I mean, my focus is I've pulled back from photography. I've figured out that my bandwidth is only so much, and I would rather be really good at a few things than okay at a bunch of stuff. And, maybe one day I'll pick up and go do photography professionally or more actively again. But I've pulled back, and I really just want to keep focusing on the podcast and on my digital marketing business. I've been doing more. I worked at an ad agency for a little while. Mainly because I'd been working as a freelancer after college. This was during COVID, I went to school during COVID, stuff like that, which was, made college even more lame. And I was working as a freelancer, and I was like, there's programs and there's ways to do this that I don't even know because I've never worked at a professional company. I've never worked at an ad agency. So I got a job at an ad agency and learn the systems, learn their workflows and stuff, because I was learning stuff. I was learning it on my own. I'm a very much a self-taught person. I'm all over YouTube, like wanting to learn how things work, how programs work, how to do different things. But I knew I wasn't getting the full picture until I worked in that environment. So I went there, kind of polished off my skills, and I was like, hey, this is great. Really appreciate the opportunity. But I'm going to go back and continue working for myself. So now I'm freelancing again and doing digital marketing and doing, like I said, SEO, search engine optimization, helping people get like Google rankings, stuff like that. Do Google ads. I do YouTube consultations and stuff through a freelancer app and everything. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep this going. I want to keep the podcast building. I want the digital marketing side to build up. I'd like to be able to make enough money from the different things to hire someone to help like do some of the editing or maybe take over part of the website, selling t-shirts and stuff like that, just to kind of, let my focus lay on the things that I really want to do. As much as I like updating my website and going through Excel spreadsheets, I'd rather have conversations with people like you,
I'm sure between AI and overseas virtual assistants, it would probably be easier than you think.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big AI person. Actually, I spoke at a conference recently
Yeah.
here in San Diego about AI. I was kind of teaching these business owners about how they can add it to their workflow. It's AI is one of I tell people what I always tell people this is the GeoCities of the internet. You know, this is the phase we're in. If you remember that, that's like early
Hmm.
Yahoo days. This is the Nokia flip phone of AI. You know, we're seeing the first iteration of it and it's impressive. What's it going to be like in 5 years? You know, we went from having Nokia flip phones to within 10 years, we're video calling people on our phones. You know, it
Hmm.
was like a very, in a less than 20-year time frame, we went from not everyone, not even a majority, like a minority of people being online to almost living in the Jetsons world, where I can communicate with people anywhere at any time with video, with it. So, and we forget how fast that technological change was. This is going to be just like that, but probably even crazier, and even wild. And I recommend for people to, even if you don't agree with AI, you need to embrace it. Not necessarily embrace it, but you need to understand it. I would recommend that you use different AI systems, because I don't want to be like my grandparents or my mom, who is an elderly woman now who has issues with technology. As I get older, I want to continue to be able to use technology and understand it. I don't want to just exist in a technological world that's doing stuff that I can't even comprehend. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, for me, everything I've told you earlier about my own difficulties with technology, being blind and almost deaf, but uh, I everything, even if I get good at a particular application, still takes me two, three, four times as long as anybody with eyes. So to cut down my busy work with the AI, where I'm totally open to that. So I'm busily studying myself how to reduce my workflow time. So
Yeah,
you
that's
you
awesome.
so you mentioned maybe advice to others, and I did want to ask you, for those who were considering transitioning, say out of the military or leaving a career they're just not feeling fulfilled or happy at, did what piece of advice do you think you'd have for somebody in that situation, somebody who is transitioning like you've done?
I would tell people, like, understand your worth. Understand that you are way more capable than you're probably giving yourself credit. Guys get out and don't go to college because they're like, man, I don't want to use the GI Bill, which I totally get. Or they don't want to, they're like, I don't want to sit in school. And it's like, you have to look at it completely different. You're going to school as an adult now. It's way different. I mean, you get to choose the classes you want to go to. There are difficult things about it, but in the end, it's a positive thing. Use the resources. And when I say go to school, I'm not saying go to the 4-year university and get a liberal arts degree like I did. That's only is worth as much as I make it to be worth. It's not an engineering degree. Like, I have to prove that I can do stuff in marketing for people to even care about that degree. And really, most people don't even care because of degree type. But if you are going, you can use your GI Bill to go learn how to become a welder. Learn how to work on vehicles. If maybe you're a mechanic, you like working on your car when you're not at work in the Marines or the Army or whatever branch you're serving in, and you don't know what to do when you get out, but you like turning wrenches. Go to school and start your own mechanic shop. You have the resources there to teach you, to let you go to school to learn the business side of it and the mechanical side of it. And if you take full advantage of those resources, like when I got out and I started school, I didn't take summer classes because I could only take one or two classes at a time. And the GI Bill doesn't work off of a certain set of funding amount, it's off time. So if I use 2 months of time in the summer to take two classes, that could be way better utilized if I take 5 classes during the full semester. So what I was doing, I started out taking 4 classes. Then I took the next semester, I took 5 classes. Then the next semester, I took 6 classes. And I was like, that was way too many. And I pulled back down to 5. And I optimized the amount of classes and stuff I was taking so I'd have more benefits. I finished school and I still have a year's left of GI Bill. So if I want to go get a master's degree, I can do that. And that's why I'm saying understand like your benefits, the time. Understand that you're very capable of doing stuff. A lot of people are afraid to take that step. You know how many times, I don't even know how many times I recorded the first intro for my first podcast. I'd record it, I'd listen to it and go, I sound like an idiot. You know, like record it again, idiot. You know, just record it over and over again. And because I was like, I'm going to release this to people. You know, other people are going to hear me. So what am I, you know, I was trying to get my, I don't know. What
I still, yeah, sorry. I still cringe when I listen to my own voice after recording.
Now, not as much, but yeah, for like literally the first 100 episodes, anytime I'd listen to myself, I'm like, oh, or I hear myself say something wrong. You know, I'm speaking for 2 hours plus most of the time, and I'm speaking on general military topics and pulling information off the top of my head. So sometimes I'll say something wrong, and then I'll go back and be doing the editing, and I'll hear it, and I'm like, idiot. Now, people are going to think you're an idiot, you know? But you got to be okay with that. To do this kind of thing, you have to be like, you know what? I'm okay with every once in a while getting something wrong. People understand. I know I'm kind of rambling, but my advice is just know that there's someone out there doing the job that you've always wanted to do. Ask yourself, why not you? Mm-hmm. You know, are you doing the things that you need to do to get? I'm never going to be an Olympic runner. I know that. So you have to have a little bit of, you know, a little bit of self introspection, you know, look at yourself and go, can I actually do that? But there's some stuff that are on the fringe where I'm like, can I run my own business? And then you find out it's hard, but it's not as hard as you think it would have been. And there's no one right way to do it. Like for a long time, I'm looking for people like you said, you're in the military. There's someone to tell you, there's a guidebook, there's this, there's that. And for a long time, I'm like, who is the expert? Where is the guidebook? How do I do this thing? And then I found out that you'll find those experts and stuff on YouTube when you're first starting. And then as you progress and you get better and better, you start running out of experts to find. And then you'll slowly come to the realization that you are becoming the expert. People are reaching out to you for stuff, you know, and there's no set path on how that happens, but it will happen if you're doing the work. You know, you're putting in the time, you're being honest with yourself about the product that you're, you know, putting out to the world, be it a podcast, a website, you know, a blog, whatever it is, you know. So that's my thing, is just be honest with your audience, I guess. Continually try to improve whatever it is that you're working on, and understand that there's no one way to do it.
There are a few things that are universal, like finding a great lawyer and a great accountant, and then the rest of it, you can write the book.
AI is going to change that real soon. You can have ChatGPT write up a contract for you.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You know, like we're in it's a weird world for white collar work, and people need to do that too. They need to kind of look ahead. Where do I want to be in 20 years? Is this job even going to exist in 20 years? And if it does, or if it does in another fashion, how easy is it going to be for me to maybe learn a new trade or shape my understanding of this trade to sync with technology from today? You know what I'm saying? Or from the future or whatever.
Well, you know, we've been sorely lacking, woefully undermanned in craftsman jobs. And it looks like AI is going to force us to refill those positions, those trades.
Yeah, it's going to be weird, man. Especially even craftsman jobs. Some of those are going to, when you start adding AI to like machinery. Like I know a lot of people that got out of the Marines and started like woodworking businesses. They're making plaques. They use these CNC machines, these wood CNC machines to carve plaques and stuff. Eventually, like, that whole thing will be run by AI. That whole process. You'll just be like, oh, I need this logo. Give it to the AI and it does everything for you. Sets up the wood, puts it into the program, the design of the program, aligns everything and then carves. It'll be, I don't know. It's going to be weird, for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to finding out how it turns out and kind of riding the wave as it goes.
For sure.
So let me ask you and I know I want to respect your time here, but before we go, I want to ask you, what are you most grateful for right now?
I'm most grateful for my son, I would say. I've gotten real lucky. He's just a overall good kid. He's as a parent, I don't have issues with him. I don't have educational issues with him. I don't have disciplinary issues with him. He's driven. He's 16. He just got qualified for his adult belt in jiu-jitsu and immediately went to blue belt because he's been doing it for 4 years already. Yeah. That's your legacy, right? Your kids are your legacy. And I just try to, you mentioned before about people don't know what they're going to do when they get out and there's no set path. And that's kind of the thing I tell my son. I'm like, hey man, I'm almost 40 years old and I've switched careers, like that's okay. You don't have to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 18 years old. He's not 18 yet, but he knows. I've asked him, like, what do you think? School, college? Do you want to join the military? Like, what is it that you want to do? And I guess that's kind of the advice I've tried to give him is that, one, you can do anything you want to do, within reason, obviously, but then you got to understand your own limits, but you can do those things. And two, if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. There's other options out there. You know what I'm saying? Humans are very adaptable, and you have to understand that you're not a one-trick pony, I guess. I try to put the bumpers out there for them. Like, hey, this is your life. I'm going to let you make a lot of decisions. If you want to do one career, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, that's fine. I put up the safety bumpers to make sure he doesn't go some extreme route or get himself into trouble because he's still a kid. But I want to give him that flexibility to understand that it's not a big deal. Like if he decided to get a job at 18 and 3 years later, he's like, this is not what I wanted to do. Maybe he joined the trades, became like a union construction worker. That's totally cool, man. Go do something else. You got the rest of your life. You got a whole life to live.
My oldest son is 12. He just wants to be a professional lacrosse player. Nice. My twins are 4 and they want to be either a firemen or fire trucks. I'm not sure. They've got time and they can change if they want.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you or learn more, where can they find you?
Yeah, if you need any like digital marketing services, website stuff, reach out to my email. It's jkramermedia@gmail.com. It's Kramer with a C. jkramermedia@gmail.com. Then my podcast, Former Action Guys Podcast. It's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those. I also have Instagram @Former Action Guys, @Former Action News, both of those. And then my website, if you're looking for a unit, like order, purchase for t-shirts and stuff, it's jkramergraphics.com. So you can just check that out. But yeah, I really appreciate it, Aaron. It's been a fun conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. And I can't wait to listen to the next episode of Former Action Guys Podcast.
For sure.
Thank you.